I fell to the floor, sobbing, but even as I tasted blood from my lip, I whispered, "It's true. Jesus is real. Please listen."
The testimonies featured on this channel are presented as received, reflecting the personal experience and perspectives of the individuals who have generously shared them with us. We encourage our viewers to approach these testimonies with compassion and understanding, as these are personal testimonies of people involved. We also encourage you to always refer to the Holy Bible and the teachings of Jesus Christ and His apostles for guidance. You can consider subscribing to the channel to support our ministry. Like, share, and comment with the country you are watching from. Watch to the end, because what you are about to hear will challenge your belief.
The night was heavy with silence, as though the desert itself had paused to breathe. The moon hung like a pale lantern above the endless dunes of Saudi Arabia, and from afar the golden lights of Mecca shimmered like a dream. Pilgrims from across the world had gathered, voices chanting, tears falling, hearts trembling with a mix of awe and fear. Among them was a woman named Leila, a devout Muslim from Albania who had spent her life yearning for this moment. The Hajj, the sacred journey of faith that promised forgiveness and closeness to Allah. But what awaited her in that holy land was not the peace she had expected. It was a confrontation that would tear her soul apart and rebuild it into something she never imagined. Leila had grown up in a conservative home in the mountains of northern Albania. Her father was a respected imam, and her mother a gentle woman who recited the Quran by heart. Religion was not just part of her life, it was the air she breathed. Her days were filled with prayer, fasting, and serving at the mosque. Her dream was simple: to fulfill her duty as a Muslim woman and make the Hajj before she turned 40. When the opportunity finally came, she sold nearly everything she had: her jewelry, her old family rugs, even her late husband's books, to afford the pilgrimage. She saw it as the ultimate act of devotion. But in Mecca, something happened that no one could explain. Something that shattered the boundaries between heaven and earth. The first night in Mecca, as she lay in her hotel room after circling the Kaaba 7 times, Leila felt a strange heaviness in the air. It was as if the darkness itself was watching her. Her heart raced. The chants from the mosque echoed through the night, "Labak Allahumma labak." Yet beneath that sound she felt something else, something deeper, a whisper that chilled her bones. That night, Leila had a dream. She saw herself standing in front of the Kaaba. The black stone gleamed beneath the desert moon. Around her, people were crying, shouting, and bowing. But the Kaaba began to change. It started to bleed. Slowly, dark red liquid oozed down its sides like veins bursting open. The ground beneath her trembled, and a voice thundered from above. Not the voice of Allah she had been taught to hear, but a voice unlike any other, gentle yet mighty, loving yet piercing. "Leila, why do you bow to what your hands have made?" the voice said. She looked up, terrified. The sky split open in blinding light, and from that light a figure descended. His face shone like the sun, and yet she could gaze upon it without pain. He wore a white robe, and his eyes were like flames of compassion and judgment at once. Leila fell on her knees, trembling. "Who are you?" she whispered. "I am Jesus," he said, "the one they call Isa, but I am not just a prophet. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Leila began to shake. No, that can't be. I am Muslim. You are not God. You can't be." But Jesus stepped closer, and the light surrounded her like warmth she'd never known. "Leila, you are loved, but your people are worshipping what is not me. The Kaaba is a stone. I am the living God. Go and tell them, warn them before it's too late." She cried out, covering her face, "They'll kill me, they won't believe." He looked at her with eyes that pierced her soul. "They killed me too, but I live forever. You must speak, even if the world rejects you." Then the scene changed. She was standing in a dark pit, fire rising, screams echoing. She saw faces she knew. One of them was her brother, Ahmed, who had died 5 years earlier in a car accident. He looked at her with terror and sorrow. He cried, "Leila," reaching out through the flames. "Listen to him. It's true. I am here because I denied him. There is no peace here, only regret." She screamed as fire licked at her feet, but Jesus took her hand and pulled her back into the light. Then she woke up, drenched in sweat, trembling and gasping for air. At first she thought it was a nightmare, a trick of the devil, but the voice, the light, the words would not leave her mind. For days she tried to ignore them, focusing on prayers, rituals, and silence. Yet every time she looked at the Kaaba, she no longer saw holiness, she saw emptiness. And the voice of Jesus echoed in her heart again, "Why do you bow to what your hands have made?" The fear inside her grew stronger. She wanted to tell someone, but didn't know who. The people around her were so devoted, so blind, so ready to condemn anything that sounded different. Still, one night she whispered her dream to an older woman from Indonesia who shared her room. Instead of comfort, she met horror. The woman slapped her across the face. "Astaghfirullah, you blaspheme," she cried. "You saw a demon, not Isa. Repent before Allah destroys you." From that moment, everything went downhill. Rumors spread through the group. The Muttawaf, the pilgrimage guide, called her possessed. Some pilgrims refused to speak to her. Others spit when she passed. Her passport was confiscated, and she was interrogated by religious police. One night, a guard struck her for refusing to recite a verse from the Quran. She bled from her nose and whispered, "Jesus, help me," under her breath. That night, she had another vision. She saw a river of blood flowing around the Kaaba, and the pilgrims sinking into it as they bowed, and she heard Jesus say again, "Warn them, Leila, the blood of those who reject me cries out." When she returned to Albania, her life was never the same. She tried to keep silent, but the fire inside her would not stop burning. She gathered the courage to share her story at her local mosque, thinking maybe someone would understand. But when she said the name Jesus, the crowd erupted. Stones flew. She ran for her life, her hijab torn, her hands bleeding. That night, her own family locked her out of the house. Her father shouted from behind the door, "You are dead to us, Leila. You are no longer my daughter." She slept in an alley, shivering, remembering the face of her brother in hellfire and the light of the man who called her by name. She knew then there was no going back. And that was the beginning of her transformation, the journey from fear to faith, from rejection to redemption. The story you are about to hear is not just about a woman's dream. It is about a divine encounter that tore open the veil between two worlds, the seen and the unseen. A testimony of courage, pain, and the voice that still calls every heart to truth.
When I closed my eyes, I can still feel the sand under my feet that night in Mecca, the night after the dream. It was as if the desert itself knew something had shifted inside me. I remember walking alone outside the hotel, the murmurs of pilgrims echoing from every corner, their chants weaving through the air like waves of sound. But my heart no longer joined them. I was silent, afraid, and yet somehow awake. The more I tried to pray the Islamic prayers, the emptier they felt. The words left my lips, but they didn't reach anywhere. Every Allahu Akbar felt like an echo bouncing off a wall. I tried to cling to what I had always believed, but deep down, something had been broken. Jesus' voice wouldn't leave my mind. His words were like fire inside me. They killed me too, but I live forever. I couldn't erase them. I thought I was losing my mind. The next day, as we were walking toward the Grand Mosque, I saw an old man collapse in the crowd. No one stopped. They kept walking, chanting. I rushed to help him. His eyes were wide open and his lips were moving silently. I bent down, trying to help him breathe. And then he grabbed my wrist with surprising strength and whispered in Albanian, my language, "He is calling you. Do not be afraid." I froze. How did he know my language? Before I could say anything, he took his last breath and went still. The crowd kept moving. I looked around, desperate for someone to see what had just happened, but it was like time had stopped just for me. His words echoed in my chest. "He is calling you." That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, trembling, thinking about what I had seen. And when I finally drifted into restless sleep, I found myself standing again in that same place before the Kaaba. But this time, the scene was different. The pilgrims were gone. The black stone was shattered into pieces. A wind blew through the empty courtyard, and a voice said, "It will fall, Leila. Everything built on lies will fall." I felt my knees crying. "But what do you want from me? I am just one woman. I have no power." And the voice said, "I chose the weak things of this world to shame the strong. Go home, Leila. Speak." I woke up screaming. That was the night I knew I could not stay in Mecca. I pretended to be sick and begged the group leader to let me return earlier. He refused at first, saying no one could leave before the pilgrimage was completed. But I kept insisting. Eventually, he agreed, but the moment I stepped into the airport, a strange peace came over me. I felt Jesus with me. Not like a vision, not like a dream, but like someone walking beside me. I could almost hear him whisper, "I am with you." When I landed back home, my family welcomed me with pride. My mother kissed my forehead and called me Haji Leila. My father gathered the neighbors to celebrate my return. Everyone wanted to hear how it was, how it felt to walk around the Kaaba. And for a moment, I almost wanted to lie, just to keep their love, to keep my home, to stay safe. But then I remembered my brother's face, the fire behind him, his eyes begging me to speak. So when they asked, "Leila, how was Mecca?" I opened my mouth and my world ended. I told them the truth, that I had seen Jesus in a dream, that he told me the Kaaba was not of God, that he said he is the only way. My father's face turned pale. My mother's hands began to shake. And before I could finish, my uncle stood up and shouted, "Silence! You blaspheme!" The others gasped. One woman began to wail. My little nephew cried and hid behind his mother. My father pointed at me with trembling hands. "You are cursed, Leila. This is madness. You were deceived by the devil." But I couldn't stop. I kept talking, crying, begging them to listen. I told them about Ahmed, how I saw him in hellfire, how he told me he was suffering because he rejected Jesus, that it was real, that he pleaded with me to warn them. When I said Ahmed's name, my mother fainted. The room erupted in chaos. My father slapped me hard across the face, shouting, "You will never speak his name again. He died a Muslim. You insult our dead." I fell to the floor sobbing, but even as I tasted blood from my lip, I whispered, "It's true. Jesus is real. Please listen." They dragged me outside. My father's voice broke with rage. "You are no daughter of mine. Leave this house before sunrise, or I'll call the elders." I spent that night sitting in the cold by the river, shivering, staring at the dark water and wondering if I should just end it all. My entire life was gone. My family, my home, my honor. The call to prayer echoed from the mosque tower, but I didn't move. It no longer felt like home. I looked up at the stars and whispered, "Jesus, if you are truly real, please don't leave me alone." And I swear to you, I felt something, a warmth around me, though the wind was cold. I closed my eyes and I heard that same gentle voice say, "You are not alone, Leila. I was rejected too." I cried until morning. The next days were a blur. Word spread through the village that I had gone mad. Some said I was possessed by jinn. Others said I was a spy sent to insult Islam. One day as I went to the market, a group of men followed me. One of them threw a stone. It hit my shoulder. Another spat at me. "Apostate," they shouted. "Blasphemer." I ran until my feet bled. That night I went to the mosque, hoping maybe I could talk to someone with wisdom, someone who could understand. I found the imam, an old man who had known me since childhood. I told him everything, the dream, the words of Jesus, my brother's cry from hellfire. He listened quietly. I thought maybe he believed me, but then his face hardened. He said, "Leila, you have been touched by demons. You need purification. I will send someone to cleanse you." The next evening, 3 men came to my house. They said they were from a religious committee. They brought ropes. Before I could resist, they forced me to the floor and began chanting verses, pressing my head down. One of them whispered, "Repent or we'll beat the devil out of you." In that moment, I felt the same darkness from the dream, the same spiritual heaviness, but I also felt Jesus with me again. His words rose inside me like fire. "Fear not, for I am with you." I screamed, "Jesus, help me!" And they froze. The ropes slipped from their hands. One of them looked terrified and stumbled backward. Another shouted, "She is cursed! Leave her!" They ran from the house as if chased by fire. I collapsed to the floor, shaking and weeping. That was the night I knew I could never stay. I packed a small bag and left my village. I walked through the forest until dawn, every step feeling like the end of one life and the beginning of another. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew Jesus was guiding me. For days I wandered, sleeping in abandoned buildings, hungry, weak, but free. Every time I felt fear creeping in, I whispered, "Jesus, please stay with me." And every time, peace would return, like a soft wind brushing my face. One night, as I slept under an old bridge, I saw him again. This time, not in blinding light, but standing by the river, smiling. "Leila," he said, "I will send you to the broken. You will tell them what you saw. Many will reject you, but some will hear. Do not be afraid of those who can kill the body. Fear the one who holds the soul." When I woke up, I was not afraid anymore. My fear turned into a strange, unshakable courage. I didn't know how, but I knew my mission had begun. That was how my second life started, the journey from a broken pilgrim to a witness of the living Christ. The morning after that vision under the bridge, I woke up to the sound of church bells. It startled me. I hadn't heard church bells in years. I followed the sound barefoot, walking through dew-covered grass until I came upon a small village. At the end of the road stood an old stone church, its walls cracked with age, but its doors open. I hesitated at the entrance. For a moment, fear gripped me. What if they rejected me too? What if they saw the scarf still on my head and turned me away? But something inside me whispered, "Go in." When I stepped inside, I smelled candle wax and old wood. A few people were praying quietly. I sat in the back, not knowing what to do. The priest, a man with kind eyes and silver hair, noticed me. He didn't say a word, just smiled and went on preaching. I didn't understand everything he said, but one verse reached into my heart like a hand pulling me from drowning waters. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Those words broke me. I started crying, quietly at first, then uncontrollably. My tears fell like a river, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't crying out of fear, but relief. The priest came over after the service, knelt beside me and asked gently, "Are you all right, my daughter?" I shook my head. "No," I said, "but I think I'm being found." That was how I met Father Luca, the man God used to guide me into the light. For weeks, I stayed near the church. I helped clean, I listened, I learned. I didn't understand everything about Christianity yet, the Bible, the cross, the Trinity, but I knew one thing. The voice that called me in Mecca was the same voice I heard when Father Luca read the words of Jesus. It was him. It was always him. One night, as we sat near the fire, I told him everything. The dream, the blood, the Kaaba, my brother in hellfire, the persecution, the voices. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, I waited for judgment. But instead he said softly, "Leila, he revealed himself to you for a reason. Few receive such a calling. You were chosen to warn and to witness." Tears stood my eyes. "But Father," I said, "I've lost everything. My family hates me. My people call me mad. I have nothing left." He looked at me with compassion. When Jesus called the disciples, they left everything too, but they gained eternal life. Those words became my anchor. Weeks turned into months. I was baptized on a cold winter morning. When I came up from the water, I felt a fire inside that no flame on earth could match. I wasn't just washed, I was reborn. For the first time, I felt like I truly belonged to someone who loved me beyond fear, beyond shame. But peace didn't last long. Word began to spread again. Some Muslims in nearby towns heard that I had betrayed Islam. They sent threats. One evening, the church door was painted red with the word apostate written across it. Father Luca told me not to be afraid, but I could see fear in his eyes too. A week later, as we walked home from evening service, 3 men ambushed us. They wore masks and shouted, "Blasphemer." One of them struck Father Luca in the face. Another grabbed me by the hair and threw me to the ground. I screamed as they kicked me, one shouting, "Go back to your religion or die." Through the pain, I heard myself whisper, "Jesus, help me." And suddenly, there was light. Not like a dream, not like a vision, but real, piercing light that seemed to burst from nowhere. The men froze, eyes wide with terror. They stumbled back, shielding their faces. One shouted, "She is cursed! Leave her!" And they ran into the night. I lay there, bruised and trembling, but alive. Father Luca knelt beside me, tears in his eyes. He said, "He was with you. You're protected, Leila." After that night, I knew I couldn't stay hidden anymore. I began to share my story publicly. Quietly at first, then openly. I traveled to nearby towns, speaking to anyone who would listen. Some came out of curiosity, others out of anger, but I told them everything, the dream, the warning, the love, the truth. I told them that Jesus is not just a prophet, but the Son of the living God, that the Kaaba is a stone, but he is alive. And every time I spoke, I saw something change in the eyes of at least one person. Doubt, fear, then wonder. Seeds were being planted. One night, after preaching in a small village near Tirana, a woman came up to me. She wore a headscarf, her eyes full of tears. She said, "I had the same dream. I saw him too." She told me that in her dream, Jesus said, "The time is short. My hand is reaching for those who still bow to stone." We cried together that night. I realized then that I was not alone. Jesus was revealing himself to others too. But persecution followed wherever I went. My name was posted online as a traitor to Islam. Once, a group of young men cornered me after a meeting and tried to burn the Bible I carried. I didn't run. I looked them in the eyes and said, "You can burn the paper, that you can't burn the truth written on my heart." They spat and left, cursing. I learned to walk in both fear and faith. Every day could have been my last, but I had already seen eternity. I had seen the fire, and I had seen the light. I knew what waited for those who denied him. I could still hear my brother's voice echoing in my nightmares. "Leila, it's real. Don't stop warning them." So I didn't stop. Years passed. I became a traveling preacher, going from village to village, telling Muslims, atheists, and even cold-hearted Christians that Jesus is not a religion. He is life. Many rejected me. Some tried to silence me, but others believed. I've seen hardened men weep. I've seen women remove their veils and whisper, "I want to know him too." But one moment stays with me more than any other. It was in a refugee camp where I met a young girl, maybe 12 years old, whose parents had been killed for converting to Christianity. She sat alone, clutching a small cross of wood. I sat beside her and asked, "Are you afraid?"